Have you ever felt trapped by your own thoughts? Like your mind is working against you instead of for you? You're not alone. Most people spend their entire lives being controlled by their minds, reacting to every thought, every impulse, every fear that pops into their heads. But the ancient Stoics discovered something revolutionary. You don't have to be a prisoner of your own thinking. Today, we're diving deep into the Stoic art of mastering your mind before it masters you. What you'll learn in the next few minutes could change everything about how you experience life. Let me start with a story. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful emperors, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. The man who commanded legions, who ruled an empire, understood that the real battlefield was internal. He knew that controlling his mind was more important than controlling territories. The problem is most of us have this backwards. We spend all our energy trying to control external things, what people think of us, what happens in our careers, how the world treats us, while completely neglecting the one thing we actually can control, our own minds. And this neglect is costing us everything, our peace, our happiness, our potential. Let's get real for a moment. How many times have you replayed a conversation in your head, analyzing every word, torturing yourself with what you should have said? How many nights have you lost sleep worrying about things that never happened? How many opportunities have you missed because your mind convinced you that you weren't good enough? This is what happens when your mind masters you. It becomes a tyrannical dictator, feeding you lies, creating imaginary problems, and keeping you trapped in cycles of anxiety and self-doubt. But here's the game-changing truth the Stoics want you to understand. Your mind is a tool, not your master. And like any tool, it needs to be controlled, sharpened, and directed by you. So how do you flip this script? How do you go from being controlled by your mind to being the master of it? Let's break this down into practical Stoic principles that you can start applying immediately. Part 1. Recognize the voice isn't you. The first step to mastering your mind is understanding a fundamental truth. You are not your thoughts. This sounds simple, but it's profound. Right now, thoughts are flowing through your mind. Some are productive, some are destructive, some are completely random. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't have to identify with every thought that pops up. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This applies to your own thoughts too. A negative thought enters your mind? That's just a mental event. You don't have to grab onto it, believe it, or let it define your mood for the next hour. Think of your mind like a busy highway. Thoughts are like cars driving past. Some are heading somewhere useful, others are just noise. The untrained person jumps into every car that passes by, letting random thoughts take them on detours into anxiety, anger, or depression. The Stoic stands by the side of the road, watching the traffic, and only gets in the vehicles that serve their purpose. Let me give you a practical example. You wake up, and immediately a thought hits you. Today is going to be terrible. An untrained mind accepts this as truth and proceeds to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy, but a Stoic catches this thought and examines it. Is this thought based on facts or just my mind creating stories? What evidence do I actually have that today will be terrible? This simple act of observation creates space between you and your thoughts. In that space, you find freedom. You realize you're not the negative voice in your head. You're the awareness observing it. This is the first and most crucial step to taking back control. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. In his meditations, he would question his own perceptions. Is this thing really as bad as my mind is telling me it is? He understood that most of our suffering comes not from reality itself, but from the stories our minds tell us about reality. Start practicing this today. When a thought arises that disturbs you, pause. Don't react immediately, simply notice. I'm having the thought that this small linguistic shift is powerful. Instead of, I'm a failure, it becomes, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. See the difference? One is an identity. The other is just a mental event you're observing. The more you practice this, the more you'll notice something amazing. Most of the thoughts that used to control you lose their power. They're just noise. And once you see them as noise, they can't manipulate you anymore. Part 2. Direct your attention deliberately. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Yet most people give away their attention like it's worthless, scrolling mindlessly, worrying about things they can't control, dwelling on past mistakes or future anxieties. The Stoics were obsessed with attention management. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He wasn't just talking about time, he was talking about attention, because time spent with scattered, unfocused attention is time wasted. Your mind will constantly try to pull your attention toward drama, negativity, and problems. This is just how minds work. They're wired to scan for threats and problems. It's a survival mechanism from our evolutionary past. But in the modern world, this mechanism has gone haywire, constantly creating anxiety about things that aren't real threats. Mastering your mind means taking control of where you place your attention. The Stoics practiced what they called discipline of attention. They trained themselves to focus only on what was in their control and what actually mattered. Here's a powerful exercise. Throughout your day, regularly ask yourself, what am I paying attention to right now? Is this serving me? You'll be shocked how often the answer is no. You'll catch yourself ruminating on an argument from last week, or catastrophizing about a meeting next month, or comparing yourself to someone on social media. Each time you catch yourself, you have a choice. This is the moment of power. You can continue letting your mind drag your attention wherever it wants, or you can redirect it. Choose to bring your attention back to the present moment, to the task at hand, to something within your control. Marcus Aurelius called this returning to yourself. He would constantly remind himself throughout the day to come back to the present, to focus on what was actually in front of him, rather than getting lost in mental noise. One of the most practical ways to develop this skill is through what the Stoics called morning meditation. Every morning, spend a few minutes planning where you will direct your attention that day. Decide in advance what deserves your focus and what doesn't. When you set this intention early, you're much more likely to catch yourself when your attention wanders to unproductive territory. Think about it like this. If your attention is a spotlight, most people let theirs bounce around randomly, lighting up every problem, every worry, every distraction. The Stoic deliberately points their spotlight exactly where they want it, illuminating only what's important and leaving the rest in darkness. This is how you stop your mind from mastering you, because a mind that controls your attention controls your life. But when you control your attention, you control your experience of reality itself. Part 3. Question your judgments. Here's a Stoic truth that will blow your mind. Nothing is inherently good or bad. Your mind assigns these labels, and then you suffer based on those assignments. Events happen, your mind judges them, and your emotions follow those judgments. Epictetus was crystal clear about this. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Someone cuts you off in traffic, that's just an event. Your mind judges it as disrespectful, and suddenly you're angry. Your boss criticizes your work. That's just feedback. Your mind judges it as a personal attack, and suddenly you're anxious and defensive. The untrained mind is a judgment machine, constantly labeling everything as good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, fair or unfair. And each judgment comes with an emotional response. This is exhausting, and it keeps you on an emotional roller coaster that you don't need to be on. Mastering your mind means learning to pause before judgment. When something happens, before your mind automatically labels it and triggers an emotional response, you insert a moment of reflection. You ask, what is the most useful way to interpret this? Is my initial judgment serving me or sabotaging me? Let me give you a real example. You get passed over for a promotion. Your mind immediately wants to judge this as terrible, unfair, a reflection of your inadequacy. These judgments lead to anger, resentment, self-pity. But what if you questioned these automatic judgments? A Stoic would ask, what if this is actually protecting me from something? What if there's a better opportunity coming? What if this is showing me where I need to grow? They're not being delusionally positive. They're being strategically interpretive. They're choosing judgments that empower rather than destroy. Marcus Aurelius practiced this relentlessly. When faced with betrayal, political opposition, or personal loss, he would reframe events in his mind. He wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This isn't about denial. It's about recognizing that the harm exists primarily in your judgment of the event, not in the event itself. Start practicing this today. When something bad happens, catch your automatic judgment, then deliberately ask, is there another way to see this? What's a more useful interpretation? You'll be amazed at how much emotional suffering you can eliminate simply by changing your default judgments. Remember, most of what upsets you isn't actually harmful. It's just labeled as bad by your mind. Change the label, change your experience. This is Mental Mastery in Action. Part 4. Accept what you cannot control. One of the fastest ways your mind masters you is by making you fight reality. Something happens that you don't like and your mind starts running stories. This shouldn't have happened. This isn't fair. Why me? All of this is resistance to what already is, and resistance creates suffering. The Stoic dichotomy of control is one of the most powerful mental tools ever developed. It's simple. There are things within your control and things outside your control. Your peace of mind depends entirely on learning to distinguish between the two and acting accordingly. What's in your control? Your thoughts, your reactions, your effort, your choices, your character. That's it. Everything else, what other people think, what happens in the economy, whether you get promoted, whether people like you, what happened in your past, all of this is outside your control. Here's where most people trap themselves. They pour emotional energy into things they cannot control, while neglecting the things they can. Your mind will constantly try to trick you into doing this, because fighting against unchangeable reality gives you the illusion of control. But the Stoics knew this was insanity. Epictetus taught, demand not that events should happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. This isn't passivity, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that acceptance of reality is the starting point for effective action. When you stop fighting what you cannot control, something remarkable happens. You free up massive amounts of mental and emotional energy. Energy that was being wasted on worry, resentment, and resistance now becomes available for productive action on what you actually can control. Let me be clear, acceptance doesn't mean you like what's happening or that you stop trying to improve things. It means you stop arguing with reality. It means you acknowledge what is, without the mental tantrum that usually accompanies it. Your relationship ends. You can spend months with your mind creating stories about how it shouldn't have ended, replaying what you could have done differently, resenting your ex-partner. Or you can accept that it ended, feel the natural grief without resistance, and redirect your energy toward building your future. You get laid off. Your mind wants to spiral into catastrophe, injustice, and fear. Or you can accept the fact, assess what's in your control, updating your resume, networking, developing new skills, and take action without the additional suffering that resistance creates. This is mental mastery. the ability to accept reality quickly, completely, and without unnecessary drama. The faster you can move from resistance to acceptance, the more powerful you become. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. He dealt with plagues, betrayals, military defeats, personal losses. In his journal, he constantly reminded himself to accept what happened and focus on his response. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the past and future don't matter, but because this moment right now is the only place where your power exists." Practice this today. When something happens that you don't like, notice your mind's resistance. Then consciously choose acceptance. Say to yourself, "This is what's happening. I accept it. Now what can I do?" Watch how quickly this shift changes everything. Part 5. Train your mind like a muscle. Your mind is like any other part of you. It gets stronger with the right training and weaker with neglect. Most people never train their minds. They let their mental patterns run on autopilot, repeating the same thought loops, falling into the same emotional traps year after year. The Stoics understood that mental mastery requires daily practice. It's not something you learn once and you're done. It's a discipline, a practice, a way of life. Seneca called this training in advance. He wrote, "The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable. So, how do you train your mind?" First, through daily reflection. The Stoics practiced morning and evening reflection. In the morning, they would prepare for the day ahead, mentally rehearsing challenges and deciding in advance how they would respond. In the evening, they would review the day, examining where they maintained control and where they lost it. This simple practice compounds over time. Each day, you're reinforcing the patterns of thinking you want and catching the patterns you don't. Over weeks and months, you'll notice your default mental patterns shifting. Things that used to trigger you don't anymore. Situations that used to overwhelm you become manageable. Second, practice voluntary discomfort. The Stoics deliberately put themselves in uncomfortable situations to train their minds. Seneca would sleep on hard ground occasionally to remind himself that discomfort isn't actually harmful. He would practice living with less to eliminate his dependence on external comfort. Why? Because a mind that's been pampered becomes weak. It starts to see every little discomfort as a crisis. But a mind that's been trained through voluntary hardship becomes resilient. It knows it can handle difficulty because it's proven it to itself. You don't have to sleep on the floor, but you can apply this principle. Take cold showers, fast occasionally, wake up early, have difficult conversations, do the hard workout. Each time you choose discomfort voluntarily, you're training your mind that discomfort is not something to avoid at all costs. You're building mental strength. Third, use negative visualization. This was one of the Stoics' favorite techniques. They would regularly imagine losing the things they valued, their health, their wealth, their loved ones. This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. By mentally rehearsing loss, they reduced the shock when actual loss occurred. They also increased their gratitude for what they currently had. Spend a few minutes each week imagining things going wrong. Imagine your biggest fear happening. Imagine failure, rejection, loss. Then ask yourself, could I handle this? What would I do? You'll discover two things. First, you're more resilient than you think. Second, the constant anxiety about these things is far worse than the things themselves. Fourth, guard your mind's inputs. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be careful what you allow into your mind, for it can shape your thoughts and influence your actions." What are you consuming? What information, what media, what conversations are you exposing your mind to? If you fill your mind with negative news, gossip, drama, and empty content, don't be surprised when your thinking becomes negative, scattered, and shallow. Your mind becomes like the environment you put it in. Choose quality inputs. Books that challenge you, conversations that inspire you, content that makes you think. Finally, Practice mindfulness of your mental states. Throughout the day, pause and check in. What is my mind doing right now? Is it serving me or sabotaging me? This simple awareness is transformative. You can't change patterns you're not aware of. The Stoics called this prososh, attention or mindfulness. It's the practice of maintaining constant awareness of your thinking, catching yourself when you slip into unproductive patterns, and redirecting yourself back to wisdom. None of these practices is complicated, but practiced daily. They are transformative. This is how you train your mind to serve you instead of controlling you. Part 6. Create mental rules and principles. One of the most powerful ways to master your mind is to establish clear principles that guide your thinking and behavior. When you have strong principles, your mind has less room to create chaos because decisions are already made. The Stoics were all about principles. They created philosophical rules that they could apply to any situation. When faced with a challenge, they didn't have to figure everything out from scratch. They had principles to guide them. Marcus Aurelius had a principle. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This principle automatically guided his response when someone wronged him. His mind couldn't waste energy on revenge fantasies because the principle was already clear. Epictetus had a principle. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. This principle kept him focused on action rather than getting lost in theoretical debates or trying to impress others with his wisdom. Create your own principles. Write them down. These become your mental anchors when your mind tries to pull you into chaos. Here are some examples to get you started. I do not waste energy on things outside my control. I treat difficulties as training, not as punishment. I do not judge others because I don't have all the information. I assume positive intent until proven otherwise. I focus on what I can give, not what I can get. I speak only when I can improve on silence. I do today what others won't, so I can do tomorrow what others can't. When you internalize principles like these, decision-making becomes clearer. Your mind has less opportunity to create drama, doubt, and confusion because the principles cut through the noise and provide clarity. This is especially powerful in emotional situations. When your mind is flooded with feelings and trying to hijack your behavior, your principles act as an anchor. You might feel like lashing out at someone, but your principle, I control my reactions, not others' actions, pulls you back to wisdom. Review your principles daily. Morning is ideal. Read through them before your day starts. This primes your mind to operate according to these standards rather than according to impulse and emotion. Over time, these principles become automatic. You won't have to consciously remember them. They'll be wired into how you think. This is mental mastery, living from principle rather than from impulse. Part 7. Understand the mind's tricks. Your mind is incredibly creative, but not always in helpful ways. It has patterns and tricks it uses to keep you stuck, anxious, and reactive. Mastering your mind means learning to recognize these tricks so you're not constantly falling for them. Trick 1. Catastrophizing. Your mind takes a small problem and immediately jumps to the worst possible outcome. You make a mistake at work, and suddenly your mind is telling you you're going to get fired, lose your house, and end up alone. The Stoics called this imaginary suffering. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you catch your mind catastrophizing, challenge it. Ask, what's actually happening right now? What's the evidence for this worst-case scenario? Usually, you'll find that the catastrophe exists only in your mind's imagination. Trick 2. Mind reading. Your mind loves to assume it knows what other people are thinking. Someone doesn't text you back, and your mind immediately creates a story. They're mad at me, they don't like me, I did something wrong. But you have no actual evidence for any of this. Your mind is just filling in blanks with negativity. The Stoic response: stick to facts. You know they didn't text back. That's all you know. Everything else is speculation. Don't make decisions based on stories your mind invents about what others are thinking. Trick 3, emotional reasoning. Your mind uses your feelings as evidence for truth. I feel anxious, therefore something bad is about to happen. I feel inadequate, therefore I must be inadequate. But feelings are not facts. They're just sensations created by thoughts and interpretations. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Your feelings follow your interpretations, not reality itself. Trick 4, all or nothing thinking. Your mind loves extremes. You're either a success or a failure. People either love you or hate you. Things are either perfect or terrible. But reality is almost always in the middle. This black and white thinking creates unnecessary suffering. Practice nuance. When your mind goes to extremes, pull it back to reality. I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me a complete failure. They disagreed with me, but that doesn't mean they hate me. This didn't go perfectly, but it wasn't a disaster either. Trick 5, dwelling on the unchangeable. Your mind will try to keep you trapped in the past, replaying situations you can't change, analyzing what you should have done differently. This is completely unproductive, but your mind does it constantly. The Stoic solution: radical focus on now. Every time you catch your mind dwelling on the past, bring it back. That's done. What can I do right now? This takes practice, but it's liberating. The past only has power over you when your mind keeps it alive. Learning these tricks doesn't make them disappear, but it gives you the ability to catch them quickly. And the faster you catch them, the less power they have. This is how you stop being your mind's victim and start being its master. Part 8. Choose your responses. Between every stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is your power to choose. Most people never access this space. They react automatically, letting their minds and emotions dictate their behavior. But the Stoics trained themselves to expand this space and consciously choose their responses. This is the ultimate expression of mental mastery, the ability to pause between what happens and how you respond. No matter what life throws at you, no matter what your mind is telling you to do, you have the power to choose differently. Epictetus said, "It is the act of an ill-instructed man to blame others for his own bad condition. It is the act of one who has begun to be instructed to lay the blame on himself, and of one whose instruction is completed, neither to blame another nor himself." This progression shows increasing mental mastery, from reactive blame to self-examination to complete ownership. How do you develop this ability to choose? First, slow down. When something triggers you, instead of reacting immediately, take a breath. Just one breath creates space. In that space, you can ask, what's the wise response here? What would my best self do? Second, have a default response prepared. The Stoics did this. They decided in advance how they would respond to certain situations. When someone insults you, your default response is calm indifference rather than defensive anger. When something doesn't go your way, your default response is acceptance and adaptation rather than resistance and complaint. This doesn't mean you're being fake or suppressing emotions. It means you're being intentional rather than reactive. You're letting wisdom guide you rather than impulse. Third, practice the pause in low-stakes situations. You don't want the first time you try to insert space between stimulus and response to be in a high-pressure moment. Practice when someone cuts you off in traffic, when you receive a mildly annoying email, when something small doesn't go your way. Each time you successfully pause and choose your response, you're strengthening this ability. You're training your mind that you're in charge, not your initial emotional impulse. Marcus Aurelius faced extreme pressure daily, political conspiracies, military threats, personal betrayals. Yet he maintained remarkable composure. His secret: he had trained himself to pause and choose. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the freedom the Stoics promise you. No matter what happens, you get to choose how you respond. Your mind might scream at you to react. Your emotions might flood you with impulses, but you, the conscious chooser, get the final say. This is mastery, not control over events, but absolute ownership of your responses. This is what it means to master your mind before it masters you. Part 9. Live with purpose. A mind without purpose is a mind that creates its own drama. When you don't have a clear sense of what you're working toward and why it matters, your mind fills the void with worry, comparison, overthinking, and manufactured problems. The Stoics were adamant about this. You need a purpose larger than yourself. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of his purpose: to serve Rome with wisdom and justice. This purpose kept his mind focused on what mattered and prevented it from spiraling into petty concerns. When you have a clear purpose, your mind has direction. Thoughts and concerns that don't serve that purpose become easier to dismiss. You're less likely to waste mental energy on drama, gossip, or pointless worry because you have something more important to focus on. Ask yourself, what is my purpose? What am I here to contribute? What matters so much to me that I'm willing to face difficulty for it? These aren't easy questions, but answering them is essential for mental mastery. Your purpose doesn't have to be world-changing. It could be raising your children with wisdom, creating art that moves people, building a business that serves others, or developing yourself into the best version of you possible. What matters is that it's meaningful to you and that it guides your decisions. Once you have clarity on your purpose, use it as a filter. When your mind starts spinning with anxiety or distraction, ask, does this serve my purpose? If not, let it go. This simple filter eliminates so much mental clutter. Seneca wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Without purpose, your mind drifts aimlessly, catching every wind of circumstance, emotion, and external event. With purpose, you have a compass. Your mind knows which direction to point your energy. Living with purpose also creates resilience. When you face difficulty, your purpose gives you a reason to persist. Your mind can't convince you to give up as easily because you're connected to something meaningful. The challenges become part of the path rather than reasons to quit. This is mental mastery at the highest level. Aligning your mind with purpose so completely that it naturally filters out what doesn't matter and focuses on what does. You're not just reacting to life, you're creating a life that reflects your deepest values. Part 10. Practice daily until it's automatic. Everything we've discussed requires practice. You can understand these principles intellectually, but understanding alone doesn't create mastery. Mastery comes from daily practice until these ways of thinking become automatic. The Stoics didn't just study philosophy, they lived it. They practiced every single day. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal where he worked through these principles daily. Epictetus taught his students through constant practice and repetition. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius, working through Stoic practices in real-life situations. This is what you need to do. Make mastering your mind a daily practice, not a one-time decision. Every morning, set your intention. Review your principles. Prepare mentally for the day's challenges. Every evening, reflect on where you maintained mastery and where you lost it. Don't expect perfection. You'll have days where your mind runs wild, where you react instead of respond, where you get caught in old patterns. This is normal. What matters is that you keep practicing. Each day is a new opportunity to strengthen your mental mastery. Over time, weeks, months, years, you'll notice profound changes. Situations that used to completely derail you barely register. People who used to trigger you lose. their power. Circumstances that used to create anxiety become opportunities for practice. Your mind, which used to be your tyrant, becomes your most powerful tool. This is the promise of Stoicism. Freedom. Not freedom from difficulties, but freedom from being controlled by your reactions to difficulties. Freedom from being jerked around by every thought, every emotion, every external event. Freedom to live according to your values and your purpose, regardless of what's happening around you. Marcus Aurelius said it perfectly. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Master your mind, master your thoughts, and you master your life. This is the Stoic path. This is the way to true freedom and lasting peace. Your mind is the most powerful tool you have. Are you going to let it control you, or are you going to control it? The choice is yours, and the time to start is now. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you're ready. Start today. Practice one principle from what you've learned. Catch one unproductive thought and redirect it. Create one moment of space between stimulus and response. That's how mastery begins, not with grand gestures, but with small, consistent practice. One thought at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. Keep practicing, and you'll discover something remarkable. You are so much more powerful than your mind has been telling you. The Stoics knew this thousands of years ago. Now it's your turn to prove it to yourself. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, I'd encourage you to watch it again. These aren't concepts to consume once. They're practices to internalize. And if you know someone who's struggling with their mind, who's trapped in cycles of anxiety or overthinking, share this with them. Sometimes one idea at the right moment can change everything. Remember, you have power over your mind. Use it, master it, and watch your entire life transform. Until next time, stay strong, stay stoic, and keep mastering yourself.